Jason Reifler joins me, former Washington pollster and professor of political science at Southampton University. Jason, thank you for joining me. I say discomfort only because, there has been a Trump administration before, and various political leaders, not just in the UK, but definitely in the UK, have made their feelings known about him. And here he is again, president for a second time from January onwards.
So we have another term of Trump, and his particular view of how the U.S. is going to act, particularly in international affairs, upsets a lot of the sort of long-standing understanding of how the United States and Europe interact and what the guarantees of American security are. So the United States offers a tremendous security guarantee through NATO, and Trump does a lot to upset that and wants to change those terms at least slightly and perhaps more.
How much of the appointment, for example, of the U.S. ambassador to Israel is Mike Huckabee is about, in a sense, playing both sides? Talking to both sides at the same time, but in a very particular way? Or how much of it is just, should we just understand it as plain and simple as they're going to be hawkish and they're going to be hawkish pro-Israel?
I think that's the simplest explanation, which is that is an appointment. An experienced political operator who has been, an elected official in the United States, but has a particularly strong view. And the United States has always I think going forward is going to have sort of tipped the scales perhaps even more strongly towards Israel than it may have
already
in the past, and this appointment I think clearly shows that.
The appointment of RFK Jr. as health secretary is an interesting one, isn't it? Because he doesn't hold back, historically and still. He's been an anti-vaxxer, vaccine denier. One health rights group, responded to his nomination, calling him a clear and present danger to the nation's health. He's made unfounded claims vaccines are causing autism, promoted the false idea HIV isn't the cause of AIDS, linked certain antidepressants to a rise in school shootings, and the use of a certain herbicide to a rise in young people coming out as transgender. Now, there's nothing wrong with skepticism, nothing wrong with open questions, but he goes much further than that, doesn't he?
He does, and he has no medical background or scientific training. He's a lawyer by trade from a well-known political family, and has a long history of engaging in conspiracy-like thought. A lot of it is around health, but it's not only limited to health. And in 2004, he was one of the big proponents of an election fraud scandal, claiming that the election had been stolen from John Kerry. I do think that his history as a Democrat, and the same with Tulsi Gabbard, makes it easier for the Republican Senate to reject Kennedy as a nominee or Gabbard as a nominee than it might be for some Republicans that might be similarly surprising choices. But the Democratic background makes it easier for Republicans to potentially reject as nominees.
Tell me a bit more about Tulsi Gabbard, because she is going to be at the heart of the nation's security, isn't she? Intelligence, I should say.
Yeah, has been nominated for the role of Director of National Intelligence, which is a particularly, perhaps, it's always hard to say which is the most surprising of choices. Is it Kennedy, who believes in a lot of health-related conspiracies? Is it Gaetz as running as Attorney General to lead the Department of Justice? Or is it Gabbard, somebody who has frequently trafficked in pro-Kremlin talking points and has been accused, because of sort of taking pro-Kremlin type positions, potentially being a Russian asset, which is probably a bit extreme and probably isn't true, but certainly has trafficked in pro-Kremlin talking points.
When it comes to politicians like Sadiq Khan or Keir Starmer or our Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who we know have reached out and had lunch and had meetings with the Trump team, is it better that they just say, politics as usual, we have to engage with whoever leads whichever country, whether it's Giorgia Meloni, whether it's Trump, whether it's whoever, we have to engage with them. That's what we're doing. Rather than have a constant conversation about the sort of granular detail of everything Trump says or Tulsi Gabbard says or RFK says.
In international affairs, countries have to deal with whoever is leading other countries. And so the United Kingdom doesn't have sort of the luxury of saying, well, we're just going to ignore Trump, or the luxury of saying we're just going to roll over and do whatever Trump wants just because he's the U.S. president. The United Kingdom has its own interests that it wants to advance and wants the United States to listen to it. So even among allies, relationships are not always easygoing or not without fraught or peril or difficult negotiations on points.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the ride, isn't it, over the next few months as people reacclimatise, I guess, to a Trump presidency, whatever it brings.
I mean, we're only 10 days in and it's already feels like a crazy roller coaster 10 days post election, and he's not even inaugurated for the second term yet. So, yeah, it's going to be something else.
And the process of confirmation of these people, of the cabinet, how long will that take? How long typically does it take?
So for the full slate of appointments, if they're going to go through the normal Senate confirmation process, takes a few months. And it's not instant. Some will get appointed more quickly than others. Trump is pushing very hard to do something that hasn't been done before, which is for the Republicans to recess Congress so that all of these appointees can go in through recess appointments rather than traditional confirmation hearings. I suspect that the Republican Senate does not want to entirely give up its prerogative and control and being able to have its say. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I would genuinely be surprised, particularly for some of these more controversial appointments, that the Senate would give up its ability to turn back some appointees it considers unacceptable.
It's funny, I noticed yesterday our national broadcaster here in the UK, the BBC, had a headline, and it was in the copy as well, Trump's party wins. It was the sort of tail end victories that it was having. Trump's party, and I thought it was interesting that it's the first time I'd seen it described, certainly by the BBC, as Trump's party. How will those very Republicans who will have a vote on this, who will have a say on this, how do they feel about it being described as Trump's party, do you think?
I mean, I think it's irrelevant how they feel about it.
Is it Trump's party?
It absolutely is. And to the extent that Republicans, and especially Republican senators, wanted it not to be Trump's party, they had that opportunity in January of 2021 during his second impeachment hearing to make sure that he wouldn't. So to the extent that he has come back, he has won another election, that he is sort of holds the reins of power, not just of the presidency, but of the Republican Party pretty tightly, it's at their feet. If this isn't what they wanted, then they should have made different choices just under 4 years ago.
All right, we'll see. Thank you very much indeed, Jason. Jason Reifler, former Washington pollster and professor of political science at Southampton University.